Could be. Anything could happen. Okay, now we've got this going. I'm going to put this up on the screen. So we've got Talmud. We're still in the quote, talking about Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Of course, what do we know about Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel when it comes to halacha? We do know those things, absolutely. What else do we know? Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chayim. These and these are the words of the living God. Ve'halacha k'beit Hillel. Right? The angel comes down and says, both these and those are the words of the living God, but halacha follows Beit Hillel. Except in 3 cases. Every other case, the halacha follows Beit Hillel. Rabbi Yechezkel, one who acted in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai has acted appropriately and is not in violation of the halacha. One who acted in accordance with the opinion of Beit Hillel acted appropriately as well. What's happening? According to this opinion, Beit Hillel, sorry, go ahead. Okay, he's arguing with God in a way, for sure, right? And we also know that the opinions of the rabbis can overwhelm. You know, if the Jewish people agree on something, then God goes along with it. Oh, it's in the Talmud. This is where the story. It's Rabbi Eliezer and versus the rabbis. And Rabbi Eliezer says that in every place the halacha follows my opinion. The rabbis go, it shouldn't be that way. Hey, come on in. It shouldn't be that way. And he says, well, if the halacha follows my opinion, let the trees fall down. And they do. And he says, well, let the walls of the study hall collapse in on us. And they do. And the rabbis say, it doesn't matter. And so Rabbi Eliezer says, if the halacha should follow me, let the divine voice, a bat kol, descend and say to you that that's true. And sure enough, a bat kol, the voice of God, comes down and says to those assembled rabbis, the 3 of them, versus Rabbi Eliezer, that Rabbi Eliezer is always right. And the rabbis say now it's 3-2. No, you're not Rabbi Eliezer. You're just regular. I mean, there's no power. But in any event, so we know that the opinion of the majority is worth more than a direct edict. So according to what Rabbi Yechezkel is saying, Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai agree that one who acted in accordance with the opinion of the other fulfilled his obligation. So although the halacha was ruled to be following Beit Hillel would agree that one who acted in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai fulfilled his Jewish obligation, still fulfilled the mitzvah, even though he wasn't doing it according to halacha. Wait a second. How attached are mitzvot and halacha? The rabbis want them to be extremely close. And if you ask an Orthodox person or something today, obviously they'd say there's no difference. Halacha is just the way you do mitzvot. But this implies there is some separation between halacha, because there are multiple halachas. There are multiple paths, multiple ways of still fulfilling mitzvot. And that's what Hillel is teaching. Reform doesn't respond to orthodoxy, because reform isn't talking to orthodoxy. Reform is talking to the Jews of the future, not to the Jews of the present, which in our current moment in the way the world works is not good, because people want to be talked to about, you know, people don't want to be talked to about a potential great future we built together. But that's always been more reform's perspective. We're not really in conversation with orthodoxy over those points because we know we're never going to agree. They come in. That's the point of orthodox. They are straight in their belief. There is one way of doing mitzvot the way God wants. That way is halakha. That halakha has been established by certain rabbis they respect over the last few thousand years, 2,000 years, and that's the way it goes. And that's perfectly fine. They can have that. What I'm suggesting is the Talmud understands, even though Orthodoxy would like to not focus on, right? Because they'd like to not focus on these points, but the Talmud understands, especially because at the time of its compilation, the rabbis were not the only form of Judaism in the game, at least when they first started. In the period of Hillel and Shammai, in the period of the Zugot, it was before 70 CE, before the destruction of the temple. There were Essenes, there were Sadducees, there were Pharisees like them, there were Zealots, there were all these different branches of Judaism. Now we really contracted after the Korban, after the destruction. And rabbinic Judaism is right. I'm suggesting rabbis of this time understood that it was more flexible than rabbis of today understand it. Yeah. Okay. Well, enjoy work. Thank you for being. So we've got that's look, and so we've got. Okay. But that's not the only thing that's going to be said. Okay, Rabbi Yosef is coming in. He says one who acts in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai has done nothing. If you say Shema the way Beit Shammai says, you get no credit and must repeat it in accordance with the opinion, do it the way Hillel said, as we learned in the Mishnah with regard to the halacha of a sukkah. One who had his head and most of his body in the sukkah and his table on which he was eating inside the house, Beit Shammai invalidate his action, as he is liable to be drawn after the table and end up eating outside the sukkah. In Beit Hillel, validate his actions, since his head and most of his body remain inside the sukkah. So what's Rabbi Yosef saying here? Well, he's saying you want to follow Shammai, but Shammai wouldn't let you follow Shammai if Shammai had been right. Right? He wouldn't let you follow Hillel. You get what I'm saying? It's like you want to be a Shammaiist. It's that saying they say about like the far extremes in politics, the fascists and the communists. Those people, it's about democracy. It's like when I live in a democratic country, I do whatever according to your principles. And when you elect me, I do what I want according to my principles, which don't involve democratic rights and freedoms. In this case, he's saying if you're a Beit Shammaiist, well, Shammai wouldn't allow you to just do whatever you like to do either. He would have been Orthodox. So if you're going to be a Shammaiist, then you're wrong. You must do Hillel because you must do the halacha as it's established. That's what Shammai said. Right? So that's what he said. He's saying, so if you're a Shammaiist, you can't be because it's wrong. But if you're a Hillelist, yes, you could be a Shammaiist. If you're a Hillelist. Yeah. I'm not sure what you formula. They're trying to establish how you should say how you should follow the law. Okay. Okay, sure. How can it's gonna be? Yeah. But there's no. See, here's the question. A Shammaiist would say, like yours, the Shammaiist would say, A plus B can't equal C if A plus D equals C. A Hillelist would say, what if D and B are both 4? 4. Then can A plus B equal C and A plus D equal C? Good. The Hillel, the Reform perspective also, Hillel perspective, is that there's more than one way to it because these are variables, not fixed. They depend on the person. So there's variance. There's not infinite variance. Again, no part of this is saying you can do whatever you want. Just reiterate. No part of this is saying, well, one part of halacha could be to do anything you. No, 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 no. I'm not saying that. But there could be 3 ways. There don't have to be infinite ways to be more than one. This is where we need theoretical physics and things to understand variances and you know, it can fall within a range and still be the correct answer. And that's what I'm don't work with integers, please. Work with ranges in your spiritual mathematics. No, you can't disregard. I mean, not in Judaism. You mean just like you in relationship with God and some like, I mean, I guess you could do that. That would not fit this. That would not fit what they're saying about Hillel, what Rav Yosef is saying about Hillel and Shammaists. Again, he's not saying there are infinite ways to be Jewish. He's just saying there could be more than one. More than one does not imply, could be less than 10. We don't know the limit, but we know the limit exists. There is a limit. Mm-hmm. And that didn't work for humanity. Because what happens, as the Torah says, what happens is people started to say, well, this personal God of theirs started to tell them whatever they wanted. And they decided that whatever they felt was what morally their God, it led to the kind of moral relativism that destroys societies, just absolutely decimates them. This kind of so yes, there used to be many different forms of thinking about God and the divine, but we think most of them are really bad for people. Yeah. That's dangerous. You're saying. I mean, oh, so there should be just one way. Which way should it be? Well, you know what? I agree with you. And since this is a democratic country, Harold, I will send you as our emissaries to our friends at the Chabad in Lawrence to say they must take off their black hats and cut their payas because since Reform is the largest group, they're not valid anymore. I mean, that's what you're saying. There can only be one way. We're the biggest. It should be our way. Is that not what you're saying? You couldn't possibly be saying that the Orthodox, who represent such a small part of the Jewish people, should be the one way, even though they don't represent even close to the majority. You couldn't possibly be saying that, right? They'd like you to say that. They'll work on you. I promise. They'll keep working on you until they get you to say it, until they get every Reformed Jew to say that the only way to be Jewish is to be Orthodox. But they're wrong. They've always been wrong. They will always be wrong. And that's a very dangerous attitude. I'm just saying, it's to embrace that there's only one way to be Jewish means one of us is right and the other is a heretic. One of us is in and the other of us is out. I don't want them to be out and I don't want us to be out. I don't want anybody to be out. That's not true. There are some people I want to be out. The limit does exist. But there's a range, not one way. They have a halacha and we have a halacha. Ours is less defined. It doesn't mean we don't both have a mashkal. We don't have a tradition from which we. I'm teasing you, obviously. Thank you for being my willing. I've lost a bunch of weight recently. I think I can afford to pump my blood pressure up. But anyway, yeah. What else? Sure. And look, hey, if I was trying to sell orthodoxy to people, obviously the only way I could sell it is it's the one true way. Because if there were multiple ways, no one would pick. I mean, it's just like it's in a in an enlightenment world, no one would pick it, which is the trouble we run into to some extent. Because there are multiple ways. But I would sell it that way because that's the best way to sell it. You sell it as the unimpeachable, everything else is false and everyone else is a heretic. Then sure, I mean that sells. You can ask the Catholics how that worked. They reigned over Europe for hundreds of years with that message, but it didn't work out well in the end. Better to compromise early instead of going to war over religion. Better to have a compromise. Okay, so we're going to continue here. We're talking about Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai, about this visit to the Sukkah. Beit Hillel said to Beit Shammai as a proof there was an incident where the elders of Beit Shammai and the elders of Beit Hillel went on Sukkot to visit Rabbi Yochanan and Haranit, found him with his head, most of his body in the sukkah, and his table inside the house, and they said nothing to him. He built the sukkah right outside the entrance of his house. The table went through the house into the sukkah, but most of it was in the house. Most of the table was in the house. Most of the guy's body was in the sukkah on this dividing line. He's eating in the sukkah, but kind of in his house. And they said nothing to him. In other words, even Beit Shammai didn't object. Beit Shammai would object. Beit Shammai has to object because they represent at this time what you call the Orthodox. They have to object because is he eating entirely in the sukkah? No. Part of him, a small part of him, is leaning into the house, is outside the sukkah. But they didn't object when they went to his house. Beit Shammai said to them, so the people of the students of Beit Shammai now come and they say, actually, point of historical clarification, friend. And is there proof from there? That is not what happened. Rather, they said to him explicitly, if you have been accustomed to act in this manner, you have never in your life fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. So they're saying, no. You said we were nice and reasonable people, but in fact, we went to this man's home and we told him he'd never properly observed sukkah in his whole life. Nice, charming people, those Beit Shammai types. Yeah, the Westboro folks like to be like that too. They take it even further. It's the same concept, just right, rebuke. We see that Beit Shammai held that anyone who did not act in accordance with their opinion didn't fulfill the obligation. That's always been true. Similarly, since Beit Hillel's opinion was accepted as halacha, anyone who acts in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai fails to fulfill his obligation. Which is just the point I was making earlier. That's about since if you believe in Beit Shammai, you believe that you can only do things the right way, and since the right way has been determined to be Hillel's way, doing anything Beit Shammai's way makes you an apikoros. It makes you a heretic. It makes you not an orthodox believer. It makes you not a straight. This is the best part. Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak stated an even more extreme opinion, just so we can get the full embarrassment of all this. One who acted in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai has acted so egregiously that he is liable to receive the death penalty. As we learned in our Mishnah, that Rabbi Tarfon said to his colleagues, once I was coming on the road when I stopped and reclined to recite Shema in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai. Yet in doing so, I endangered myself. We'd read this in an earlier section where they used this as part of as a proof for the Shema, for the Amidah. Yet in doing so, I endangered myself due to the highwaymen, right? The robbers of the road. Roads aren't safe. He was standing on the side of the road. The highwaymen accosted him. The sages said to him, you deserve to be in a position where you are liable to pay with your life as you transgressed the statement of Rabbi of faith. What's happening? Listening to Beit Shammai being so rigid, in fact, makes it dangerous for one to live as a Jew in the normal world. Because what did Hillel do? Hillel made a change. He said, Takana, he said, you can say a shortened version of your prayers so that you don't have to stand by the side of the road for 40 minutes and pray. And be liable to be accosted. This guy decided to do it the real way. He got off his horse. He stood by the side of the road. He put on his tallis. He couldn't see what was happening. And he got beaten up and he got robbed. And so they had said to him in that story, you deserve that because you didn't listen to Beit Hillel. And so this is taking that further, saying, following Shammai and not Hillel, your rigidity is such a danger. We don't want to encourage people to think it's okay to be that way. So we're going to take all of your rigidity and this one guy, just Nachman Bar Yitzchak, but he says you deserve the death penalty for following Shammai. That way, no one will follow Shammai. Not that he wants to kill a bunch of people. He's just saying that way nobody will follow Shammai. Easy peasy. They don't do that. They don't decide. You want to follow Shammai. The rabbis are really rabbis live in the time of the Romans, so they're obviously very acquainted with the abuse of state power and the use of the state to murder people when they just feel like it. Romans did that a lot. So the rabbis are really apprehensive about the use of state power to a cost, and to they know it's used against Jews a lot, and so they really don't want to give us the power to kill each other unless it's like super duper ultra verified. You do something, it's basically got to be like Pinchas. The rabbis basically set it up like, you know the story of Pinchas from the Torah. Pinchas is the breed of peace, breed shalom. Pinchas is the guy, he sees an Israelite fornicating with a sexual relations. Midian. What should I do? With some foreign woman in the middle of the camp, and he took his spear and he rammed it through both of them. And it's you got to have that many witnesses basically if you're going to convict someone of the death penalty. house in June. You got to have like 100 people who can all say, I mean, yeah, we saw him walk up to, I'm not saying that those people are doing it. You got to have walking up to him and saying, yep, he walked up to them, he stabbed them both with a spear, all saw it. You're going to get somebody. They really try not to kill him. Okay. Let's see. Thank you guys. It's noon. You guys are welcome. Thank you for joining us. No, don't pressure them. I don't want to. We do enough of that in the Jewish community. I don't want to guilt them into. It's cool. We appreciate their dedication. Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. We'll turn to the Mishnah.
You just know it.
I'll remember that story from me.
So they will.
I hope that's. Get a couple of those stories in there. So having mentioned the blessing recited over Torah, which we covered previously, the Gemara focuses on a dispute over what constitutes Torah in terms of requiring a blessing. So we're about to find out that I've been messing up all this time. We should have said last up B'divrei Torah before starting all this stuff. Thank you, I appreciate it. We're recording. There's more than one way, right? Right, yeah, I'm not gonna be excommunicated for it. That's for sure. Okay, Rav Huna said, for the study of Torah, of Tanakh, for the study of Bible, it says here, but not Bible. What does it mean? Mikra, like the text. So the 5 books of Moses or the Tanakh. For the study of Bible, one must recite a blessing as it's the word of God, and for Midrash, for halachic midrash, the derivation of halacha from verses, one need not recite a blessing. If you're going to do midrash, you're good. With halachic midrash, when you get to other midrash. And Rabbi Eliezer said, for Bible and midrash, which includes halacha derived from verses themselves, one must recite a blessing. For Mishnah, which is only comprised of halachic rulings issued by the sages, one need not recite a blessing. It seems like we're climbing a ladder here, right? The first one said Bible, yes, Midrash, no. The second one says Bible and Midrash, yes, Mishnah, no. The third one is going to say, Rabbi Yochanan, even for Mishnah, which includes final binding rulings, one must recite a blessing as well, but for Talmud, which comprises a study of the Mishnah and the rationales for its rulings, one need not recite a blessing. When you're doing Gemara, you don't have to do it. When you're doing Mishnah, you have to do it. Yes, yeah. But when they say Talmud, they mean Gemara. When an Orthodox person says Talmud, they don't mean Mishnah. The Mishnah is its own thing, even though it's there for reference. For them, Talmud means Gemara. Yeah. Definitely don't have to. It's also like I say you don't have to. The Orthodox rabbi would say you shouldn't, because they're very particular when you use them and doing a blessing when you're not supposed to. But no, you're not supposed to. You might do a different blessing, but not something great. Well, we think God appreciates. Yeah. That's interesting. I would think, I think God appreciates very deeply much like a king would appreciate, would you walk up to a king and say, yo, king, or even our governor, let's say, we saw our governor again the other day. Yeah, do you do that even with the governor? Do you walk up to do you walk up? I'm curious. Do you walk up to Governor Kelly and you say, "Hey, Laura, how's it going?"
A name is very.
Laura Kay. We have a name of God. We don't pronounce it. Yes, that's a sign of respect. And because we don't want to pronounce it wrong, we don't pronounce it. There is no direct. There is no more direct one. This is a direct one. Here, I'm just trying to understand. Like they want you to understand that they take very seriously the forms of how they approach blessing, because blessings are not rote minutiae of them. They mean it. And thanking God in the correct way is important. The same way you want to address anyone in a super important. Say it's a big case that you have. You do a lot. You do a lot of preparation. You know exactly how you wanted to talk. Judge, if there was a jury, to the you would know these things because you're good at your job. This is their job. Being a Jew is part of the job, and they want to do it well. And the only way to do it well is to know when to say the blessings, and so they have these conversations so that you will know when you should say the blessings, because the blessings are important. They think God appreciates the blessings. That God hears the blessings and feels like the world is becoming a better place. We're soothing God. Not that God needs to be soothed. It's so nice to think of this. Ta-da.
Since Kabbalah represents commentary on Tanakh, we do mention the Tanakh at times, therefore we had to. Not so.
Had to? That's an interesting way of putting it. I think you're probably. I think it was probably respected. I think the rabbis would have more to say about your ecumenical nature than your interfaith nature than your choice of one. But, for another time. Okay. And then just so you know, we didn't end there. And Rava said, even for Talmud, even for Gemara, which is the means to analyze the significance of the halachot, they're essentially getting to what you said. They're just saying anything that mentioned anything, we got to throw in there. So one must recite a blessing, because studying Talmud is how you really understand the Torah, is what he's saying. So if that's how you truly understand the meaning of the Torah, you should say the blessing. Rava says, yes, say the blessing even for Gemara. This statement is supported by the practical halacha derived from observation of Rav's practice. His student, Rav Pia Bar Ashi, said, many times I stood before Rav to study our chapter in the Sifra, known as the Torah Kohanim, the halachic midrash on Leviticus, of the school of Rav. And I saw that Rav would first wash his hands, then recite a blessing. Only then he would teach us our chapter. This demonstrates that even before their study of Torah Kohanim, which, due to Rav's explanation, the reasons behind the halachot, was the equivalent of studying Talmud, one must recite a blessing. So Rav, even more than Rava says, do it for Gemara. What does Rav say? Not only for Gemara, for the commentaries on the Gemara. There, the Gemara clarifies. My mevarah. What formula of blessings does he use? There is a dispute over the formula of the blessings as well. Rabbi Yehuda said that Shmuel said Formula of this blessing is like the standard formula for blessings for some. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified us with a control, commanded us to engage in matters of tongues. Which it says here, right? Amar Shmuel, what blessing did he say? Asher kitchen b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'aseh. He said the blessing for Torah study. Rabbi Yochanan concludes the blessing by adding the following. Lord our God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the house of Israel, so that we and our descendants and the descendants of your people, the house of Israel, may be those who know your name and engage in your Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, who teaches Torah to his people. So we added this nice ending, which is a very nice ending. And Rav Hamnuna said an additional formula. Who said, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. V'chatar l'naynu teina Torah. What did he say? He didn't say the one for this Torah study. He said the one we say when we read from the Torah. Right? In the blessing for reading from the Torah, we say, right? Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, who's chosen us from among all the peoples, v'natan lanu et torato. Who was given to us his Torah. We bless God, Noteina Torah, the giver of the Torah. It says, with regard to this formula, Rav Hamnuna said, this concise blessing is the most outstanding of all the blessings of the Torah, as it combines thanks to God for giving us the Torah, as well as a claim for the Torah and for Israel. Right? Claim for the Torah. God's Torah, and that's cool. It's a way. Claim for us, given to us, pretty cool. And Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, chosen from among all the nations. Just brush it off the shoulder a little bit. Yeah, there are some Jews today that try and say Asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim, which try and say which chose us with all the nations. And everyone who says that, I want to put in. I want to excommunicate them. Talk about the limits. Like, we were not chosen. The rest of the nations didn't go through the Holocaust. The rest of the nations were persecuted for 2,000 years. We weren't chosen with all the other nations. We have a particular destiny. And I'm not interested in hearing Im kol no. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. Chose us from among. That sounds good. Sure, go for it.
I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. Love them. So, does it mean only if it's true?
Sure.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. So,
what does that have to do with being chosen? For this vote and for the particular destiny of the Jewish people.
it doesn't.
Oh, no. I mean, well, here's the thing. Like, when I have if it's a Torah study group, no. But obviously, I wouldn't need to because that's not the blessing we say for Torah study. This is what they're about to say. They're going to say, since several formulas for the blessing over Torah were suggested, each with its own distinct advantage. What did the rabbis decide? He said, Hilkach, Lai Marinehu, I don't know, Lai Marinehu, Lakulhu. So let us recite them all. So they picked each of them for a different thing. So one of them is the blessing for the rabbis in Torah study, which is Yochanan's. One is the regular Torah study, which is the first one, which we have to know. And one is for reading the Torah, which is Rav Hamnun's. So now they're like, okay, we got all three. So they're putting it, but like, for instance, if non-Jews come to a Shabbat service, I'm not changing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still saying, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, I'm still saying, in the Kiddush, I'm still saying, the same, it's similar. And I'm still saying in Lenu, what is we saying? That chose us from among the peoples and made our destiny different from the other peoples of the earth. Sure. I mean, yeah, but it's what we believe. I'm all for not offending people when I can offend people. But like, if they want to be offended by that, I would also explain they shouldn't be offended. I understand how it is to explain to people. It doesn't usually work. But it's not we who sang it. It's God who sang it. We do. We're proud of it. But what did God choose us for? For wealth and possessions and happiness? No. Right, we're merely distinct, right. I usually emphasize, right, first of all, it's not exceptionalist. It doesn't say we're better than other people. It just says we're distinct. We were chosen for a particular mission and destiny. Not that other nations are worse than us, just that they don't have our mission. They don't have the Torah. They don't have any of this. Yes, but that's the idea that we've been trying to say that Christians don't listen to when they get upset over things like chosenness. They say, oh, you're chosen, you must think you're better. And to be fair, we separate ourselves too, which I understand where they might get the impression, although it's their fault for not asking better questions. Not our fault for not explaining ourselves. It is never a Jew's fault for anti-Semitism. Including for people who are upset about our chosenness. We believe, yeah. No, sure. No. Sure. Yeah. I would say as long as we explain it correctly. What? Oh, yes. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I'm just saying the chosenness aspect thing is not necessarily, I mean, it's exclusionary from our mission, but even that you can convert to Judaism. So like if you're really jealous, like I'm not telling you you can't be in. Like we're not keeping it from you. Exactly. And they can also live their life however they want. They could also choose to live good lives by the light of God's Torah without converting. They could just do good things and read the Torah. They can do that too. Like, yeah, it's very hard to understand. It's also, you are absolutely right. It is a burden. It's a burden God placed on us. And we're grateful. Some burdens are good. You all know this. You have children. Children are a burden, right? Especially when they're like 2, they're probably a burden. Oh my God, they can't do anything. You do everything. But they're a worthwhile burden. Well, but it's also a burden. It's both, right? You're right. It is a blessing and a burden. So is chosenness. It's a blessing and it's a burden. It's a burden we were chosen for. And we can bear it. Jewish people have always proven we can bear it. And we can bear it because humanity deserves an example of a people that's not afraid to live up to it. We're going to keep doing that. You like it? Absolutely, and we should be sure to be out there. It's our job to make sure that we represent it correctly. Well, and I try and take that into every, in the month of April, I think I must have been on TV 10 times. But I take very seriously the idea of representing Judaism when I speak to the public, because that may be the only experience they're going to get, or the only education they're going to get on that particular subject is when they see me on X, Y, or Z. And so I take that very seriously. I think we all have. God is its own thing. They don't like a lot of things. They don't lead with them. There's a lot of things against, and it tends to rub up against a lot of members of our community. But they don't want to lead with that because they're still hoping to raise money for them, even if liberal Jews wouldn't like the things they advocate for. That is manipulative. I don't have like a huge following. So, how about it? It's okay. No, it's good. This is what we do here. We talk about stuff. The Gemara is going to lead this very interesting topic. Less interesting. As the Gemara is wont to do. So the Gemara returns to dealing with the blessings that accompany Shema and describes the practice in the temple. We learn there in a Mishnah in Tractate Talmud. So we learn there, which means in Talmud. We say that Amar lahem Amune. So in the morning, the deputy high priest, appointed to oversee in the temple, said to the high priests who were members of the priestly watch on duty that week, recite a single blessing. Members of the priestly watch recited a blessing and read the 10 Commandments, Shema, V'chaya im Shema, Vayomer. The recitation of the standard recitation of Shema. So this is all the different parts of the Shema, what the Shema says. So there are multiple paragraphs of the Shema. Shema is the first paragraph. Shema and Baruch, then V'chaya im Shema, Yomer, which includes so yeah, so they did that. Additionally, they blessed the people with 3 blessings. These blessings were Emet V'Yatziv, true and firm, Avodah, so the Avodah blessing. It's one of the blessings of the final 3 blessings of the Amina. And the priestly benediction, cited in the form of the prayer without the instruction. Usually, so they did it without the And on Shabbat, one blessing is added to bless the outcome of the watch, as the watch serving its neighbors. They're working. Certain details in the Mishnah are not sufficient. First, what is the single blessing that the deputy high priest instructed the guards to recite? The Gemara says it is like the incident where Rabbi Yossi bar Abba, happened to visit, so it's Rabbi Abba and his son, who was also happened to visit a certain unnamed place, and the people there asked them, what is the single blessing mentioned in the Mishnah? They did not have an answer readily available. They came and asked Rav Matana. He too did not have an answer readily. They came and asked Rav Yehuda, and he told them, Shmuel said as follows, Ahava Rabbah. You know that one? It's a great one. We don't get to say that in the morning, which is going to be relevant here probably, but you know, we don't do it. If you want to come, then we can do 9 a.m. minion. You get a couple more people to come, and I'm happy to lead a 9 a.m. minion. So yeah, so Rabbi, so okay. So now we know Ahava Rabbah is that code word for the changing of Rabbi Zarika said that Rabbi Ami said that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said different names. This single blessing is that was how Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish's statement was received in Babylonia. Yet when Rav Yitzchak ben Yosef came from Eretz Yisrael to Babylonia, he said that this halacha was not a direct quote of a statement by Shimon ben Lakish. That which Rabbi Zerika said was not stated explicitly by Reish Lakish, but rather it was inferred from another statement. As Rabbi Zerika said, that Rabbi Ami said, Reish Lakish said, from the expression recite a single blessing, in the Mishnah in Tractate Talmud, it follows that failure to recite one of the blessings recited for Shema does not prevent one from reciting the other. This means that if only one of the blessings was recited, obligation to recite that blessing was fulfilled, as the two blessings are not mutually different. So what did that whole story teach us? Taught us that taught us that saying each individual blessing is its own mitzvah, and that you get credit for saying each one, and that if you say one and not the other, you still get credit for the others. It doesn't matter which one you say.
I used to collect LC wrappers, which got me into this field.